So I'm so excited for all of you right now because you are here in what I think is definitely the most important session, because what you can learn here is going to be able to help reduce your costs. It's the type of information that can help you. I know some of you work at another company right now, so if you're looking to be able to improve your marketability in the marketplace, being able to say, hey, I reduced my company's cost X%, that's the kind of stuff that is going to stand out with employers. Or maybe you're someone that owns a business. I know I was talking to someone who's looking on behalf of their customers. These are the kinds of things that make you stand out. And all of you definitely stand out. You're here to learn how to reduce your costs, and that's what I want to go over. So my name is Jillian, and I'm a startup solutions architect. And I've had this conversation probably hundreds of times of businesses that want to be able to reduce their costs. And usually when they come to me and say, I want to reduce my costs, the challenge I see is they don't have a system, because they want to go through the bill and then they're just like, all right, we're going to go reduce it everywhere. And then they maybe implement some strategies, and then the next month comes and they're like, all right, but then what do I do now with the next month's bill? How do I actually reduce it? And so you need a system that you can be able to apply. So because what happens when your company grows? You're releasing new features. There's new, maybe AWS services that you're using. And how do you then be able to systematically work with your team? Maybe new people join the company. And so now it's a unified strategy that allows you to be able to reduce your costs and have a more stable cost and be more, I would say, proactive on what your costs are going to be, instead of you get the bill one month and then you're just like, how did I get here? So that's really my intention for today's session. And so you need a system, and this system is something that I suggest. It doesn't matter if it's maybe your first year in AWS, you're brand new, or you've been using AWS for years. You need a system. And so this simple 4-step system is something that you can be able to implement for your company, whatever it is that your actual spend is. So the first step is you've got to schedule it. I don't care if it's once a week, bi-weekly, maybe it's once a month. You've got to have a system that you can be able to make sure that you, your team, anyone who's actually using the AWS account can meet together, go through what your costs are, follow these other steps, and then actually scheduling that time to go and do the work, making sure that's when you're going into the console, executing those steps instead of getting lost in emails and doing other procrastination instead of actually doing this kind of work, because I see that a lot when I work with startups. So then once you schedule it, then in that time that you're going to do and actually acting on those changes, you're going to want to think of what are some things that you can automate, which isn't everything in cost optimization, but ideally you want to be able to automate parts of the process that you don't have to then think about it every single month. So for example, you're using EC2 instances, and you're using them for development, maybe for some testing. You know that you're going to be not having to use those instances maybe at night, weekends, other times when you're sleeping, and so turn those off. You can set it on a schedule instead of having to rely on just best judgment of not turning those instances off and then forgetting, and that's just like wasted money. So those little things that you can start to automate in the process are just like easy wins. Then once you automate it, then you definitely want to make sure that you're measuring it. Setting certain KPIs. And I'll give you some general suggestions that cover probably the majority of businesses here. I know it doesn't cover everything, but these KPIs are going to really help you to be able to have a North Star of what are my cloud costs, but with respect to bigger trends in the business. And then the last step is really actually acting. So doing the work when you schedule that time of, okay, it's these 15 minutes, I'm going to go in and reduce my cloud cost by doing these 3 things, making sure that you're doing it. And this simple strategy is what you can be able to use regardless of the size of it as of your business. So the first step is scheduling it. And I'm just going to give you some suggestions. I know there's some people I was talking to here who are really new to AWS. So and it's going to be different from someone maybe who is not new to AWS and or someone who needs to be more proactive. So here are just some suggestions of the frequency in which you can be able to go in and reduce your costs. So if you're someone that is completely brand new, or there might be some other people, depending on what stage you're at with your business and your spend, where it's like, all right, we need to be proactive and we need to reduce costs now, save on cash, preserving cash for our startup. That's where I would say even once a week. And that can change over time. That doesn't have to be once a week forever. You can start with once a week. And if you're new, being able to at least have that once a week meeting so you can get a real sense of like, what are the areas that are contributing to my costs, and then being able to see those numbers move over time, that's just gonna be a great way to get you in tune with how you're using AWS and where the costs are lying. And then for those of you who are probably here and who are maybe more experienced with AWS, you've done a lot of cost optimization strategies, and you just want to make sure, like, hey, I want to be proactive, and I want to make sure that nothing abnormal is going on with my spend. Let's say you can do it once a month, and that could be super quick. All right, now some of you might be wondering, all right, you mentioned KPIs. What are some KPIs that I should be thinking about? So for a lot of those B2C types of businesses, you want to think about your cloud cost per customer. Because AWS is a usage-based model, when you just look at the cost alone, it doesn't say everything. Because let's say your traffic is going up, that means your AWS usage is going to go up. So just being able to say, oh, my costs are going up, without having a big picture of like, okay, but how does that move with respect to other needle movers in my business? It's not going to give you the full picture of how to actually really narrow in your focus and tell the full story of how is it that, let's say we're spending ads somewhere, how are those ads then being able to convert into paying customers, how does that impact my cloud costs? So you want to be able to have this type of KPI that can give you a really holistic view of your cloud spend with respect to other areas of your business. And then it's super easy to be able to come up with that number for cloud cost per customer. So this screenshot here is taken from the AWS homepage. So if you were to go to the homepage right now, the homepage within the AWS console. So if you go into the AWS console when you sign in, and you'll be able to see right away that there is an area that calls under cost and usage, that is your current month costs. And so you can either use that number, or you can use the one below, that's the last month's cost, divide that by the total number of customers, and now you've got like your KPI that you can use. And then you can start to be able to track those costs over time. And I'm sure a bunch of you here are maybe in B2B types of businesses. So if you're a SaaS-based business, and maybe you want to get a sense of, okay, what's my actual cost per tenant? Like, is company A, what is company A's cost versus company B's costs? And maybe that can help you decide, like, oh, is there maybe we need to change the pricing structure of company A because they're overutilizing the service, our product, compared to what it is that we're actually charging them. This cost per tenant solution that you can be able to get here is going to help you to be able to understand that number. So either way, you're then going to want to start tracking it. So I don't care if it's an Excel spreadsheet, you can use Amazon QuickSight. Once you've got that KPI, and there's probably other KPIs that are also specific to your business, then you can start to measure these with respect to your cloud costs over time. And that's going to then give you, okay, this is my North Star, and the goal here is that you want to start getting it to be pretty stable. Like, yes, there's going to be fluctuations, of course. Maybe you're in a seasonal business, but at least starting to be able to track this metric over time is going to be able to help you, maybe other stakeholders in the business, be able to really understand how your cloud costs are moving with respect to other parts of the business. All right, now let's get into automating it. And so here are just some 6 different small things that you can start to automate that can really help you to be more proactive in reducing your costs and just being more proactive in how it is that you are actually using AWS. So the first one I would say is AWS budgets. So budgets is something that I don't care if you're literally just opened your AWS account today, or you've been using AWS for years, you want to use AWS budgets. So AWS budgets, it's super simple. You go into the AWS console. If you don't even have like a budget in mind, pick a number. Pick a number that you know, like, all right, I want to get notified when 85% of my cloud costs hit that number. So let's say you're like, to keep it simple, I want to get notified, let's say you set your budget at $100. I want to get notified when I get close to being able to spend $100, so then I don't have to wake up one day, get the bill, and be like, oh my God, it's like $1,000 this month. You'll get notified when it's at $85, and it's like, all right, you're getting closer to that. And what I think is great about budgets is then over time, you can start to be able to, you get those notifications, and maybe, like, let's say it happens in the 4th week of the month, you get a notification, an email that says, oh, you're close to hitting that budget. Let's say it's now the next month, and it happens in like the 2nd week, and you're like, wait a minute. Usually I get notified, or I'm get close to that budget towards the end of the month, and now it's actually towards the beginning. I should actually start looking at what's going on. And that's what helps you be more proactive instead of reactive. So please definitely do this. I see so many companies who, I get those emails all the time of like, I don't understand what's happening with my bill, and this is just something that can really help you to be ahead of it. So once you implement budgets, you've got to implement cost anomaly detection. Let's say there was some bad actor that was to go into your account, they start spinning up EC2 instances for Bitcoin mining, and all of a sudden your bill goes from $1,000 to $100,000. Cost anomaly detection can be able to notify you of saying, hey, your spend is unusual this month. And so that's another way of being proactive about it. Or maybe there's just someone on your team launches a new service or testing something, and you can they'll get notified, hey, are you sure that you wanted to spin up this service that you haven't been using before? So it's just another way of being able to be more proactive about making sure you're not spending in areas that are wasteful. So then once you do those things, those are just more of the proactive side. And here's another one that can be proactive, but also help you to be able to just make sure you're not wasting money. So Trusted Advisor, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is an AWS service in your account that gives you recommendations on cloud computing best practices, but the great part is how you can actually implement them, because it's going to then analyze your usage of AWS, and it'll give you recommendations of like, hey, in the security pillar, for example, there are some open ports. These are the exact ports. You should go and lock up those ports because they're open to the public right now. Or in cost optimization, there'll be easy ones where I'll show you like, oh, you've got a load balancer that's not attached to any EC2 instances. So you could be saving X number of dollars if you just delete that load balancer. So those little like easy things that are just, it's so easy to forget, like, oh, I didn't know that I had a load balancer that was running. So that's something that you want to make sure that you're being able aware of. But what's great about this solution is that it makes sure that you have a way of being notified, because without having an automated way, you'd have to go into the AWS account, you'd have to go into the console, and you have to look, okay, what are the Trusted Advisor findings, and go and actually take action on them. But with this solution right here, you can get notified. So I'll walk you through what it actually is. So everything in AWS is an API call. So here you call the Trusted Advisor API for the cost optimization checks, and you can then have an event through Amazon Event Bridge that can then be able to trigger Amazon SNS. And then with SNS, you can then be able to send a push notification to your phone. You can have it send an email. Or if you want through the AWS chatbot service, you can actually then have it send a Slack message to other people on your team to say, hey, we found these are areas that you could be actually saving on your AWS bill by X number of dollars if you were to do these things. So this is definitely something that if you want to be able to automate it at some point, this is a solution that you definitely want to be able to take advantage of. And then this one is also really simple, but especially as your data grows, like it's huge, can be in the cost savings. So intelligent tiering, this is a feature that's available for Amazon S3 and Amazon EFS. So what it's going to do is it's going to intelligently move your data into the most cost-effective storage class based on the access patterns of that data. So I know we've got some people here who are new to AWS, so I'll just go over what these are. S3 is object storage, so maybe you're storing raw data. I know some of you maybe are doing machine learning. You've got your training data sets, and those can definitely, that data volume can really add up. Or maybe you're using Amazon EFS, a file system, and maybe you've got machine learning data, you've got content in there, and both of those, either way, can start to add up. So being able to use intelligent tiering, it's going to make sure it's always cost optimized. Instance scheduler. So as I was alluding to earlier, you don't want to have those EC2 instances if you're running and, oh, I forgot to turn them off over the weekend when I was out not using work. Set it on a schedule. And so that's what this instance scheduler can do. You can set a schedule of, all right, there's going to be hours I know where I'm not going to be doing work, or I don't need those EC2 instances running. And so with this actual solution that you can deploy into your AWS account, you'll set the schedule, and then those EC2 instances can be turned off automatically. And then for those of you who are using Amazon SageMaker, something similar as well. SageMaker Studio, without this, you'd have to actually manually turn it off. But with this solution, you could then auto shut down. Because it's a lot of costs are just really run because it's the actual charges, the hours of that, whatever it is. It's your EC2 instance, the service that you're using is running. So just having something where you can just make sure that when I don't need it, it's shut off, that's going to be able to just make sure you're not wasting money. So those are just kind of 6 things, and I get it, like not all of you here are going to be using all 6, but maybe just one of those or find other ways to be able to automate is definitely going to really help you long term. All right, so now we've got the meeting scheduled. We've figured out what our KPIs are. We are figured out what it is that we're going to automate. Now we're in that meeting. What do we do? What are some of the tactics that we can do to make sure that we can reduce our costs? So that's what I want to go over right now. And as when you're in that meeting with your team, there's really, I would say, 3 questions that you want to kind of set the stage for that meeting that can kind of help narrow your focus of how it is that you actually focus your time in reducing your costs. Because I get it, all of you here, a lot of you maybe you own businesses, some people are architects, product managers. You've got like a billion other things that you need to be doing in addition to being able to be responsible for reducing your company's cloud costs. So I get it. This is not something you're going to be doing 24 hours a day. Being able to focus your time on the things that are most impactful, that's what I want you to get out of this talk. So the first 2 questions are going to help you to be able to just get an overview of like, okay, what does our spend look like? How are we trending? So that's what you're going to be able to understand when you look at what are your current costs, forecasted, how is it actually trending, how does this compare to maybe last month or maybe compared to year over year of this month compared to this month, previous month in the previous year. And then the second cost is what are the top 3 costs for AWS services this month. That question is going to help you to really narrow your focus when you go into that tactic mode of reducing your costs. Because in my experience of helping hundreds of customers reduce their cloud costs, 80% of their actual AWS bill really comes from the top 3 services that they're using. So my suggestion is focus your time and energy on reducing your costs with the top 3 services. Then, yes, you can go into the other services as well, but it's really the top 3 that's going to give you the highest ROI in reducing your costs for the amount of time that you are allocating to reduce your cloud costs. And then the last one is your cost per tag. So cost allocation tags, This is a feature within AWS that can allow you to be able to understand what your costs are on a more customized level. So maybe you want to label certain services like, okay, this is for dev, this is for testing. And so now in a more unique way, you can start to understand, okay, what are my dev costs compared to my staging costs, or whatever may be a unique way that you want to be able to branch out your different costs. So now once you've got these three, I'll show you where it is that you can actually find them in the AWS console. And the great thing is all of them can be found really in the home page. So it's super easy. I mean, I want this to be like a really easy system for you to be able to implement over and over with your team. So the current month's costs and the forecasted month's costs, those can be straight in the home page of the console. So once you sign into the AWS console, the home page under cost and usage, that's where you're going to be able to see it. So you can quickly be able to get a sense, what are our costs? And the fact that you've got a cadence in which you're doing this is going to help you be more in tune of like, oh, this is much higher this month, or oh, what we've been doing actually is working. And then for those that start to use cost allocation tags, you can go into Cost Explorer, and then within Cost Explorer, you can start to be able to see and filter these reports by tags. So if you're not familiar with Cost Explorer, it's a service that can allow you to be able to see your AWS costs visually in a chart, and you can do a lot of different filters over time. But the feature that I personally enjoy about Cost Explorer is being able to actually filter by tag, which is one of the filter options that you can see in the far right-hand side. And then the top three costs for AWS services in this current month, that's also in the home page of the AWS console. So literally, it becomes like your dashboard to be able to start understanding how you're using AWS and how to start being more tactical. So in this situation, let's say this was my company, I would see like, okay, so I've got SageMaker, Glue, and RDS are my top three AWS costs. Now in that meeting of how do I go be tactical, I personally like being able to go into the last month's AWS bill. I personally like being able to see the line items of what it is that is causing for my AWS cost to be that level that it is. So in this case, I'm looking at it and I notice that if you look at the line item under SageMaker Run instance, because that area is $2,000 and $2,700. So that's where I would start to focus my attention. I would say, wow, so it's actually the main portion of my SageMaker costs actually is just the cost of running that SageMaker instance, so doing the machine learning training, the actual work itself. So that's where I need to focus my energy in being able to reduce the costs. So you'll see that as the last line item. And then from there, I could also then be able to focus on the second one, which is if the third line item down in the SageMaker Run instance, it's the ML-M4.XL large, and it's the number of hours that are running. So both of those, that ML, the M4.X large, and the P3.2X large, those are comprising of the most of my costs, so just the cost of running those instances. So that's where I would really start to then drill down. And I'm going to give you, and I'll tell you what exactly it is that I would be doing if this was my startup to reduce those costs. And I know we've got people from all different levels of experience with AWS, and I figured as I'm teaching you, we're going to play a game. So I'm going to pull it up, and so Damon, if we could switch screens. All right. So we're going to play a game because we're in Vegas. Vegas is all about casinos and games, and that kind of makes it more fun. So if you want to play, scan the barcode right over here, and you're going to be able to. We're going to play a game. It's a trivia game. These are the 4 cost-saving essentials, I would say, that any single business should implement at some point. It's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when to actually implement those cost-saving essentials. So let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Let's see, so we've got 7 people, all right. So there's 4 questions. The winner is gonna get some AWS stickers for their laptop. And I know some of you are new to AWS, so if you don't know, just guess. It's totally fine. But I'm sure some of you maybe know the answers to these, so that's kind of when I test your trivia. All right, 14 people, so if it looks like maybe that's everyone, so we are gonna get started. All right. So in the app, the question will show up, and then you'll be able to actually click on the answer that you think is the answer to this question. All right, so let's get rolling. So the first question is, drum roll. All right, so you want to use this if you want to reduce your EC2, Fargate, SageMaker, or Lambda costs, if you know what that utilization is going to be in the next 1 to 3 years. Is it guard duty? Is it savings plans? Amazon Athena? Or a magic 8-ball? Let's see what we got. Oh my God, yes, you all are so good. Perfect. All right, so savings plans. So savings plans, I mean, any of you here, I know most of you got it right. So savings plans, if you're new to it, this is just something that you definitely want to be able to implement. It's essentially kind of like a mechanism where if you know what your usage is going to be the next 1 to 3 years, instead of paying the on-demand price for that actual EC2 instance at Lambda, you can then use a savings plan and get a reduced hourly cost of that usage compared to actually just spinning it up on the on-demand price. So that one I'd see hands down. And so in that example that I showed you earlier when I was looking at my bill and I saw that the majority of my spend on SageMaker was the hourly cost of running that of SageMaker, that's when I would say to myself, okay, if I was advising a startup, I would say it makes sense to use a savings plan because that's clearly the area where you're going to get the most reduction in spend for what it is that you're currently doing. So awesome. All right, let's see how we are shaking up on the leaderboard. All right, it's close. Wow, oh my gosh. All right, Nitin, John, and Miguel, KV, Farshad. All right, this is a close game. All right. Question number 2 is coming up. Let's see. So this processor, you should definitely want to test it before putting into production, and it could save you costs for your compute, database instances, many actually other types of workloads as well, instead of x84. So it could be SageMaker Autopilot, maybe Proton, and let's see. Oh my gosh, yes! I'm so glad a lot of you already know this. This is fantastic. So Graviton, for those that you don't know, this is a type of processor that AWS has created, and it's really designed to be able to give you superior performance compared to x86 or AMD, depending on the type of use case. So with that better performance, you can then be able to spend fewer hours actually running that actual compute, whatever it is that you're doing. Fewer hours means then, or less EC2 instances, for example, that you're using. That means that you're then going to have lower costs. Or in a lot of cases, when I'm actually done like looking at the pricing page, for example, of like the T4Gs versus like a T2, or in some cases like GPUs looking at like the G instances compared to other GPU-based instances, for the same vCPU memory, the actual hourly cost is less for Graviton. I haven't looked at this for everything, so I can't say it's for everything. Those are just examples that I've recently looked at when I've been working with some startups. So definitely make sure that like when you're looking at Graviton instances, look at the specifications, the vCPU memory, other metrics that are important compared to what it is that you're doing with what other instances you're using. All right, wow, I love that so many people know the essentials. This is great. Oh, we got a shakeup. All right, oh my gosh, it's so close, 1 point difference. KV and Nitin. And Miguel is close, John, but Mike has gone up on the leaderboard. All right, so we are 3 questions. Now the third question. All right, so RDS, Redshift, or Elasticache? What would you use to be able to save your costs here? It could be savings plans, reserved instances, Amazon Connect, Amazon Pinpoint. All right, so reserved instances. So I know this is confusing because you'd think like, wait, don't savings plans like kind of the same thing, right? Like wouldn't they work? Don't ask me why, but savings plans don't apply to RDS, Redshift, and Elasticache. So that's why like if you are looking long-term for savings, you want to use reserved instances just because they don't have them for savings plans. But it's a similar idea as a savings plan of being able to, your usage and your utilization. That's what's definitely going to be able to give you the highest savings, I would say. Oh, what a shakeup. All right, Miguel, this is getting interesting. All right, we've got one more question. The cost of saving essentials any business should use. All right, batch, HPC, CI/CD, use this instead of on-demand instances. We've got Amazon Corretto, Amazon Detective, Spot instances, AWS Wicker. Let's see. Spot. All right. Most of you got it. I love this. I mean, this is like, I'm so glad that a lot of you kind of know these essentials because this is definitely the stuff that's going to help you, I would say, long-term, and really, I would say the majority of the cost savings really start with those kinds of essentials, I would say. So for those who aren't familiar with Spot instances, if you think of the way that maybe a lot of you are provisioning instances, if you're, let's say, not using savings plans or reserved instances, it's on-demand instances, which you can provision on demand. Any of those instances that are not being used, they go into a separate category, and that's called the Spot pool. This Spot pool allows you to be able to use those instances but at a reduced price compared to the on-demand price. So this is great for those workloads where maybe it's like machine learning training jobs. You're doing some big data analytics. You've got CI/CD. These things that are very compute intensive, but it's not like your back-end production application where you need to make sure it's mission critical and can't be have any interruptions. Because the catch is that those Spot instances, there's a 2-minute warning, and they could be going back to the on-demand market if someone wanted to actually use that instance to be able to run their application. So that's why you only want to use it for any of these kind of like stateless or workloads where you can handle a temporary pause in your actual computing job. Wow, I'm so glad that all of you know the essentials, because I think once you know from here, then you can start to do some other additional optimizations, but this is like foundations. So let's see how we did. All right, Mike in third place. Perfect. Oh my, it's really close. John and Miguel. Okay, where is Miguel? Miguel, oh, awesome. All right. Congratulations on being the first winner of the cost optimization talk. Fantastic. All right. So Damon, we can switch it back. All right. So I'm glad that you've now that all right, you know those are the kind of essentials that you need to know. And from here, this is when it starts to become an architecture conversation once you start to do those essentials. And I put these principles because as I was doing more research on cost optimization, at this point, it starts to become very use case specific based on what services you're using in AWS and how they're using them. And so there's over 175 services, and going through every single one and how you can reduce it, that really becomes like a use case specific thing. So what I wanted to do was just put some general principles that can cover a lot of different use cases. And then, of course, at the end, if there's questions that are specific to your use case or to a specific service, I definitely want to be able to help. So here are some general, then, architecture principles can help you to be more cost optimized. So first, data, you want to archive it into S3. Any data that you don't necessarily need, so I'd say this is a common one that I see with startups that I work with, is they've got their data in a database, and it's fine when you're just getting started, but there comes a point where it grows and it gets really large, and if you don't have an actual archiving strategy, your read queries start to slow down, the actual time of being able to get that data is a lot slower, and your actual storage costs start to go up. So if you don't need that data to read it in that database, archive it into S3. The storage costs of having that in S3 compared to having it in a database are going to be significantly less. Compressing your data. If you're using Amazon Athena, you're using a data warehouse, Amazon Redshift, you want to make sure that you're actually compressing that data. Also, the same applies maybe if you're using a database. So compress that data. As for Redshift and for Athena, that's definitely going to make a difference. So Athena, it's based off of the amount of data scanned per query. So being able to compress that data is going to actually reduce the per query cost. And then for Redshift, same with the actual storage cost, being able to compress that data. And of course, the performance is going to improve as well. Serverless. I love serverless. Anything that can be made serverless should be made serverless. So serverless is not meant for every single type of workload, especially those high compute intensive workloads are not really designed for being serverless. So your machine learning training jobs, maybe you're doing genomics workflows, those are not necessarily serverless workflows, but it's something like a web application. Maybe you're just doing like some cron jobs, or even, for example, like Taco Bell, their actual like online ordering system is all completely serverless with EventBridge, Lambda, and step functions. So there are really high-scale applications that you can build with serverless. But what I like about this from a cost optimization standpoint is you don't have to worry about over-provisioning or having some servers running when you're not using them. And there was some research done in 2018 by the IDC, which is a third-party cloud company that does research in the market. And they found that companies that actually use serverless, they spend less on their cloud infrastructure than companies that don't use serverless. So that's why I love being able to use serverless, and I recommend it to everyone that can use it at any point in whatever it is their application is. I know this next one is kind of like a duh moment, like delete anything that's not being used, but it's definitely, I get that like there comes a point where, especially as maybe your data grows, the complexity of your application starts to grow, it can be easy to maybe just not be able to get a hold of what's running in your AWS account. So just going through and like, okay, do I really need this load balancer? This EC2 instance, do I really need it running? And actually being able to delete it is going to be able to just kind of help those just little habits. And then partitioning optimally, especially if you're using RDS, you're using Aurora, DynamoDB, being able to partition that data optimally is going to be able to help you make sure that the actual data that you're scanning, especially maybe for Aurora, if you're based on the actual read IO, being able to partition optimally is going to actually reduce your read IO costs. So being able to partition your data optimally is definitely going to be able to help in reducing your costs in that example. So I know from working with a lot of different companies, I know it can feel overwhelming to be able to actually go out and start reducing your costs and having a system that you can constantly be able to do that over and over. But I would say the benefit that I've seen from the hundreds of companies that I've worked with at all different sizes to reduce their costs is that the good thing is it actually doesn't really require these like major changes and like you doing and like spending like hours at one point. It's really that consistency over time. So scheduling a time when you and your team, or maybe it's just you, that's going to go in, reduce your costs, automating what you can, and maybe figuring out, looking at your KPIs, and then going in and saying, okay, what's like one small thing that I can do today to reduce my costs? Maybe it's get a savings plan. Maybe it's setting up budgets, going through Trusted Advisor, figuring out what are some things that can be deleted. Those kind of little things can actually start to stack up. So you definitely want to make sure that you're actually implementing a system that works for you and then taking action instead of feeling like you have to do everything at once. So those are really the general principles, and I think with that, I definitely want to open it up for questions. Anything that's maybe more use case specific to you related to cost optimization, I want to be able to help you out. So any questions?